Welcome back to Open Line, talking about the Supreme Court, the ruling that will come in June on same-sex marriage. Should it be legal in all 50 states? We've had a bunch of calls. Let's go to Jeremy now. Hello, Jeremy.
Yes.
Hi, what's on your mind?
I just got one thing I'm worried about. I just don't think we need big government choosing stuff for us. I think the state, if they voted it in, let them be it. But if the state voted it out, you know, I don't think we need big government forcing stuff down our throat. And that's all I got to say.
So that would be leave it to the states. Now then the second question is if someone gets married in one state that approves gay marriage and they move to another state that doesn't, you know, what happens there? And that is one of the issues that's being discussed here. Yeah. You know, how do we deal with that?
You know, let me just say in response to that caller, I also run into people, I don't know if you do, who say we ought not have any marriage laws. Marriage ought to be just a
and they've
religious
explored that in Oklahoma, yeah.
ceremony, you know, go to the church, get married. For people that aren't religious, you know.
Right. They want the state out of it altogether.
Yeah. So I don't know if he was saying we just need to get out of the marriage business or if he was saying whatever the state decides, well, it decides. But and now I hate to say my age in the time of night slipped in and I can't remember.
But the issue, that second issue that's being considered by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And
why Justice Roberts Chief Justice Roberts might want to take.
Let me address something we talked about in the break first. Chris had mentioned earlier that the decision might be 5-4 or 6-3.
Right.
And one of the things that crossed my mind as I listened to the arguments, and I think Chris agrees here, is that Justice Roberts as the Chief Justice, if he's in the majority, he gets to write the opinion. And so if he realizes that the result is going to be 5-4 in a direction that he probably wouldn't really like, he might decide, well, you know, I'm going to join the 5 to become the 6th, so I get to write the opinion, and I'll write a very narrow opinion that would do its best to protect religious liberty issues we've talked about, to prohibit polygamous and polyandrous marriages. So you could wind up with a 6-3 decision, not because Justice Roberts really wanted to be over there, but he wanted to make sure things didn't get out of hand. So I just think that's an intriguing legal behind-the-scenes thing. We'll never really know. But,
it is interesting. And it's interesting how they choose who gets to write the opinion. If it's 5-4 and Kennedy is that deciding vote, he would get to write the opinion because he's the senior judge in that case if it's all the liberals. But all right, so
but anyway, going back to your other question.
Well, now I'm interested in that. What is a narrow way it could be written that I guess would concern you or make you happier? I mean, what could really, if it's legal in all 50 states, what could be written in that opinion that would be of major concern to either side?
Well, what we would love to see happen is not only, you know, the marriage amendments struck down, but also language that indicated that sexual orientation is the type of class that would qualify for suspect class for discrimination and heightened and on and on and on. We would love to see that. I don't think we'll get that from Roberts.
Yeah.
We might get it from Kennedy, since he talked in Windsor so much about the harms to children and he talked about the dignity marriage confers on the couple, and was a little shocked when the state's representative didn't really buy that line of reasoning. So that would be a concern from our side for Roberts doing it.
You know, I don't know. I've thought, if I was the judge and I wanted to try to come up with a definition of marriage that could not be elastic and go beyond, I'm not sure I know what language I would use. So I don't know how to answer your question. I couldn't figure it out. And now I didn't go to Harvard either. I went to a public law school, so maybe that's my problem. But I don't know how you define marriage, and that was the issue. If marriage is simply love and respect and shared responsibility, then who is to say that 3 or 4 people can't mutually love, respect, and share responsibility? So I don't know. That's why I said the court owes it to us to not just say you can't do this. They need to tell us what we can do. They need to give us the new definition, whatever it is, and then find a basis for justifying it. But going, you may not want to do it, but going back to the original question, you know, one of the things that's interesting about this second question about do the states have to recognize something, if if the court rules that marriage is inherently really a state thing, and states ought to be able to control it, then the question would be, well, if that's the case, why should I have to accept somebody else's definition of a marriage? Mm-hmm. Because you've just said that it's something I ought to be able to control, and then you turn right around and say I can't control it if you come here from some other place.
I take a different view. I don't think the 14th Amendment means that the Supreme Court has to stipulate everything a state can do. I think the 14th Amendment exists as a check, one kind of check, on the power of the individual states. And it can say, this is definitely out of bounds, you can't do that. And that still preserves the role of the state in determining who's eligible for marriage. Maybe not on the basis of sex, but on the basis of, who can pay the fee, who can, did you wait a certain number of days? Some states have waiting periods, others don't. We no longer have a blood test in Tennessee, but that was common in many states. And if we have horrible outbreaks of syphilis, we might go back to that. Those sorts of things. The state can still determine so many things in the field of marriage, but the Supreme Court, through the 14th Amendment, can step in when a state gets out of bounds, I think, and say, you can't do that. That is not acceptable. That's not equal protection.
Do you expect that when this is written, when this comes down in June, there will be a definition, like a new definition of marriage, like what is appropriate and what is not appropriate? Is that what you're looking for? Do you expect something like that?
Well, I expect they're going to have to tell us what it is, because for millennia we've thought it was a man and a woman, and if it's not that, then tell us what it is. And that's where I'm saying again, as a legislator, as a policymaker, as a trial judge somewhere down the road, I've got to figure out when somebody walks in, and they will, and they say the three of us want to get married, I've got to figure out what to do with it. And you've got to give me enough guidance to know what to do with it, that I'm not left guessing.
I've heard that argument a lot, that it could be 3 people get married, 4 people get married. I've never considered that.
Well, there are lawsuits already pending.
Well, people can make that argument. There are certainly lawsuits pending. I think the issue of coercion, when you've got 3 people as opposed to 2 people, starts to enter in when you talk about multiple partners. When we see societies where and we have experience with polygamy in our history. Certainly in biblical history it exists, and it exists in some contemporary societies today. I'm not convinced that there is the same level of consent involved as when there are 2 people. But it's not up to me. It'll be up to the judges, it'll be up to the lawmakers, the legislators, the people who lobby these things to make those arguments. Again, this will not close the question permanently. It may open other questions, and it won't immediately decide those. The process continues. And I think that's one of the great things about our Constitution. It allows that ongoing conversation. So I'm not scared of that question coming down the road, because I think our legal system is big enough, is sophisticated enough to handle it appropriately. But my personal opinion is you'd have to show me that there wasn't the possibility of coercion when you've got 3 people, 2 ganging up against 1 in decision making and things like that. So,
and I agree that could be a basis, but to me, I would argue that's a policy reason for not going there, not a constitutional reason.
And that may be.
And that's where I am concerned, that if I say to somebody, marriage is love and respect and shared responsibility, who am I to come in and say that when these 3 people walk in, one of them's coerced? Well, probably not. They may feel like it later. But who am I to sit here and measure the level of coercion you're feeling? You say that. You want your dignity. I gave Chris his dignity. How am I going to constitutionally deny your dignity?
But I suspect if someone did come to you, David, you would actually begin to think there might be some problems there related to coercion, and you would use your judgment. It would not be perfect at the time, but we have a legal system that I think is sophisticated enough to deal with that. It will take time.
Can the court say in the ruling it's 2 people, period?
I mean,
I think that's what they will say.
If you get 5 votes, you can say anything you want to.
All right.
I think that's what they will say.
All right, we have to take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap everything up. Be back right after this.